Vader elegantly maneuvers his pod racer through the caves of Beggar's Canyon, feeling the rush of wind against his helmet.
And Sky Glider zooms through the desert sands, ratcheting up his position into first place,
Fode calls to the crowd. Vader's heart races.
But wait, it looks like the new up-and-comer Plo Koon, who raced and placed second in the Cato Neimoidia circuit in his first race, is coming up quickly behind the stranger. They're neck and neck, each vying for dominance in the final leg of this track. Who will emerge victorious?
Fode yells emphatically. The crowd roars in excitement as the two race down the final leg of the track, each hoping to emerge victorious.
But wait, it looks like Tatooine native Luke Skywalker is on the track, coming in hot pursuit of Plo. This is a tight race, folks. In all of my years of calling races, I've never seen one as close as this. Who will be the victor?
Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Anakin Skywalker returned to pod racing as Vader and went pro? In this sequel to What If Anakin Returned to Pod Racing as Darth Vader, we'll explore that question, and you're in for a real treat. So grab your delicious bowl of bantha stew and settle in for a wild ride, because this is What If Vader Went Pro in Pod Racing. After Vader had done so spectacularly in his first race, he begins to make waves across the galaxy. Many commentators begin talking about how excellent his handling of the pod racer was, and how he had been so close to beating the infamous Sebulba, who was well known for his strange tricks and quick response times to pod racers.
Man, in my countless years of commentating on races, I have never seen a guy that's been as crazy as that mysterious stranger was,
Fode says on one of the many commentary shows that he has across the galaxy.
This guy, absolutely spectacular. You know what? Quite honestly, his style reminds me plenty of that young kid who came in here many years ago, back in the day, that Skywalker guy, whatever his name was, and I watched him come and race and beat one of the greats. What an incredible racer that kid was, and then he just vanished. But now, we have somebody else that we can watch and we can enjoy with that same ferocious passion as we watched with that young Skywalker. What do you think, Bede?
Bede responds in Huttese, saying that he is also incredibly excited to see what this new racer would accomplish.
I also hear that now he's changing his name from Mysterious Stranger to Skyglider. What an incredible name change, I would say. Don't you think, Bede?
Bede nods in response, and the other panelists comment on how they think that this new Skywalker might be a little overrated, because especially he was new to the game and he had one race. It would be interesting to see how he responds to pressure in the future. Across the HoloNet, everybody is talking about Vader, the rookie who had almost beaten Sebulba. Meanwhile, in the deserts on Tatooine, Taku continues to train Vader on his old racer, wanting to show him that he can accomplish things with this manual racer. After getting blasted in the engine for the 4th time by random Tusken Raiders who came out to Beggar's Canyon just to play around and make sure that the pod racers and other people traveling had a tough time through there, Taku takes Vader aside while they're fixing the old racer. I know that you've got that spirit in you. I know that you can race. I know that you can glide this thing. Your name's Skyglider now. I saw how you handled that old racer back in the trenches when you were going at it against Sebulba. I know that you can handle this thing. It just takes a little bit of effort. What's blocking you? What's on your mind? Vader shakes his head, not wanting to confide in his new master about what was going on. It's nothing. There's no mental block. I'm just not feeling it right now, Vader responds. I lost to Sebulba, and now this whole thing feels like it might be a fruitless endeavor. Taku nods his head, understanding. I know how that pressure can be. I've felt it, Tacoma. I've raced so many times, and I know that the media can put so much pressure on your back, especially as a rookie. But I also know that those waves you made, they aren't going away anytime soon. You're not just going to be a one-hit wonder. You are in this for life, but only if you want to be. I'm not going to train you if you keep doing whatever this thing is in your mind and getting in your head. No, you are no longer Tacoma. You're Skyglider. You're a racer. You got that? Taku asks. Vader looks at his new master in the eyes. He sees him. He sees his passion for the sport, and Vader feels something stirring inside of him. He senses that Taku means every word that he says, and that he is fully committed to Vader's development as a racer, but only if Vader would continue to follow his words. Vader, after a moment of thought, nods. All right, Taku. I'll take your advice. I'm going to get past this. I'm going to race, and I am going to defeat Sebulba. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, in the deep halls of the Palace of Coruscant, the Imperial Palace where Palpatine reigns supreme, he convenes Tarkin, Yularen, and many other high-ranking Imperial officials. How goes the search for my apprentice? Palpatine asks, waiting for someone to respond. Tarkin smugly looks back at Palpatine, and he has his hands clasped behind his back as he says with an air of superior authority that he has the key to Vader's position. There has been an Imperial officer who has done his due diligence and come forward to discuss where Vader is posted, Tarkin says. And where might that be? Palpatine asks. Well, why don't you ask him yourself? As a matter of fact, this is the officer that Vader went and tried to find when he was out doing his search for the corrupt man on Tatooine. Palpatine smiles. Oh, so this corrupt official is now in our good graces? Well, if he can lead us to Vader, then of course, especially if Vader has deserted. Tarkin looks at the officer at the end of the room, Captain Higgs, the one who Vader had gone after, trying to hunt down. Higgs, what do you have to say for yourself? Where is Vader? Higgs smiles. Well, I saw him racing, if anything, on Tatooine. I've been there for a while, hiding out in the shadows, and last I heard, well, he had done some big race against that bigwig Sebulba, and now he's still there, hiding out, but still continuing to race. In fact, I think he's made quite the splash for himself. I was quite impressed to see what he'd been up to. Those skills, I would have never guessed that such a Sith Lord would be that damn good at pod racing, Higgs says. Vader has returned to Tatooine, Palpatine asks, and he's settled down. Well, you know, I think that we will find Vader, and I want to attend to him personally, especially if he is as high caliber of a racer as you make him sound to be, Captain Higgs, the Emperor says. Show me where Vader is, and if you do so correctly, then perhaps we will lay all charges against you as null and void. You will have done a great service to the Empire, Captain Higgs. Higgs smiles, standing up a little straighter, adjusting his collar. Well, thank you, Emperor Palpatine, but really, I'm just doing my duty, he says. Palpatine smiles. And the Empire thanks you for it. Now, let us go. I want to see Vader personally. Palpatine, Tarkin, Yularen, and Higgs all depart the room together with Palpatine's Red Guards in tow, attending to one of the Imperial Lambda-class shuttles nearby. Soon, the Empire would arrive on Tatooine again, and soon, Vader may very well be discovered as the pod racer he is now. As all this is going on, Taku and Vader continue to train with one another. They soar through Beggar's Canyon on the new racer, and Vader continues to have a difficult time grasping the manual controls. Even with his adeptness in the Force, and even with his phenomenal piloting ability, he had become accustomed to the fancy systems of the newer starships, along with having a droid to help him along. Dang Ferric! Vader cries as he once again shorts out the pod racer and causes it to bump up and down on the sands as he comes to a halt in Beggar's Canyon, scaring off a few Jawas that had decided to congregate in the middle. Taku looks at Vader. Man, you really need to get your focus down, he says. You're doing so well, so nicely. And then at the end, every time at the end, you're just coming around that corner too quickly, and it catches you off guard every single time. Taku continues. Vader looks at his mentor. I know, Taku, but it's just so easy to lose control of this manual racer. There's so many things to focus on, and my mind is in a million different places at once. He continues. Taku shakes his head. I know, Tacoma. I get it. Trust me, I was there. This thing is hard to learn. But once you get the reflexes down and master it, I know that everything's gonna be perfect. It'll just flow through your veins. You're a natural pod racer. And I just know that you'll be able to get this down pat. Once you do, you'll be perfect at it, and everybody in the galaxy will be even more astounded by you than they already are. The guy who comes out here with some old janky racer and beats these newfangled guys with their big hot stuff that they just tout around like it's the biggest thing in the world. I can't wait for you to just go out on the track and annihilate them, Tacoma. You've got this. Taku encourages. Vader nods, taking his step back and understanding that this was a process. He would get there, and he would perfect this manual transmission pod racer. The next day, Anakin gets out there again. He is so ready to just keep on going, keep on training. He goes out and he gets ready, prepares himself mentally, takes a deep breath. Taku looks at him. So, you ready, Tacoma? Vader nods. Yes, readier than I've ever been before. This time, Vader races down Beggar's Canyon with a determined look in his eyes. He is going to ace this. He caresses the curves with a ferocity that he had never had in this racer before. He looks towards the end, seeking to accomplish his best time so far. He scares off a group of congregating Jawas in the middle of the track when he zooms by on his racer, taking them by surprise. Taku looks at him and nods, impressed by his apprentice's newfound passion for the sport and his new determination to get better. However, as Vader continues, old memories come back into mind. First, he starts to remember when he had been a kid pod racing across his track. Then, he remembers meeting Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn, following that Padme Amidala. He then remembers everything that happened afterwards, the Clone Wars piloting through ferocious seas of separatist fighters, ensuring that his clone troopers survived, marrying Padme Amidala, training Ahsoka. All of it rushes back to him in that moment, and suddenly he's hit with a wave of remorse for his actions. Suddenly, PTSD comes to haunt him. Anakin spirals out of control as all of this emotion overtakes him, and once again, he falls, almost crashing into one of the massive towering rock structures of Beggar's Canyon. Vader slams his hands on the control board in frustration, angry with himself for letting his emotions take control. What the ferric happened that time, Tacoma? Taku shouts. Why? You were doing so well. What's going on? Vader looks at his instructor, his eyes deep into the past. I don't know. In a moment of weakness, things from long ago came back to me. People, places. The racer, it just sparked so many memories of what used to be and what is now. Vader looks at Taku directly into his eyes. Taku looks back at him. You know what, Tacoma? I know that you're tough. I know that something's bothering you. And I know that we're gonna fix this. You gotta get out of your head. What are you? Are you just some kid in a bucket hat? Or are you a pod racer? Now let's get back out there and try this again. Vader shakes his head. I'm done for the day, Taku. He gets out and walks back to Taku's residence, frustrated and even more remorseful for his actions in the past. Taku looks back at him, seeing a man in pain, and he realizes that he needs a rest. He goes back to his residence as well, and leaves Vader alone, deciding to continue to just rest and think about how he could better train his apprentice. H2NO makes them a lovely bowl of bantha stew for dinner, and they both sit in silence, contemplating the past, present, and future. I hope you enjoy, H2NO says cheerfully before departing from the kitchen, ready to recharge his bolts for the night. Vader stands up, quietly going back to his room and falling asleep, meditating on the events from the day and imagining what he wanted tomorrow to go like. He would ace at Beggar's Canyon, and he would completely annihilate anyone on that track that dared challenge him. No more would he get inside of his head. He was a pod racer, not just some kid in a bucket hat. The next day, Anakin wakes up, well rested and ready to go. Taku looks at him and smiles. "You ready, Tacoma?" Vader simply nods, knowing that he was going to ace this track. Today would be the day. Finally, he would get out of his head and finish Beggar's Canyon. Vader gets into Taku's racer, and he envisions success. He sees the finish line, and that is the only thing that he thinks about. Then he takes off. He zooms through Beggar's Canyon, taking twists and turns that he had never risked before. He ends up caressing the corners once again, maneuvering through places that he had never even seen before. He feels the racer flowing through him, and he feels the force as well, knowing that his reflexes could actually help him, and he could be up for the task. When Tusken Raiders begin firing at him from above, Vader expertly maneuvers away from them and continues on his track. Taku, who's sitting beside him, nods, knowing that this would be the time that Vader succeeds. As Vader pulls through the end of Beggar's Canyon and reaches his record time, Taku is thrilled. Vader jumps out of the racer, pumping his fist in the air. "Yes, that's how I like it," Vader says. Taku nods in approval, smiling. "Well there, Tacoma, I think you've done it. You've earned my trust on that thing." He looks at Vader in the eyes, and he slaps the old pod racer. "You know what the name of this thing is called?" Vader looks at him and shakes his head. "I think that it's about time you learned. I know you've always just called it hunk of junk or something like that, but it's got a name. This is the Crimson Bolt. This is my racer, and you are going to succeed in it. You are going to ride the Crimson Bolt to success." Vader looks at him, and underneath his new mechanical helmet, he smiles. He was going to make his coach proud when he raced next. The next day, Taku signs Vader up for the next race on the Tatooine circuit. He knows that this isn't going to be as high profile of a race as the one before, where he had been racing in the Boonta Eve Classic, but it's still something that draws a lot of attention in the Outer Rim. This time, he knows that Vader will be prepared, and he also knows that he will have full control of that manual racer. They continue to train in Beggar's Canyon and on the Dune Sea for many, many weeks leading up to the race, and Taku is absolutely thrilled by Vader's progress. He is so ready to see him take on that next step in the race, and hopefully win them both a decent amount of prize money that could take them to the big leagues. When the day of the race finally comes, they are both ready, in the headspace, and dedicated to continuing onwards and fighting whatever would come their way on the track. Vader knows that he's going to beat Sebulba this time, and he was going to show people that there's more to pod racing than just the electronics of the new racers. However, when Vader gets to the track, something odd happens to him. Something very odd. He looks towards the other side of the arena as all of the racers are lining up, and he sees a familiar face. His jaw drops as he senses that presence in the Force as well. It was Plo Koon. If you want to see how Plo Koon got into pod racing, please go check out our What If Plo Koon Survived Order 66 video. That one tells you all about how he started his pod racing career and why he's now on Tatooine, ready to face Vader. Plo Koon looks back, seemingly recognizing Anakin's presence in the Force as well. "Hey, Tacoma, you know that guy?" Taku asks. Vader looks back at him. Yeah, I know that guy. We crossed paths a few times in the past. It's nothing. Don't worry about it," he says. However, the next time that something big hits Vader, it hits him like a truck. And today, racing up next in our newest lineup of racers, the Tatooine rookie himself, Luke Skywalker, who's been practicing many laps on his T-16 Skyhopper, is here to give pod racing a whirl. Let's put our hands together for the Tatooine native himself. The crowd cheers for Luke when Fode announces this, but Anakin feels a pang of regret and sorrow welling up in his soul. Luke Skywalker? It couldn't be a coincidence that that boy bore his same name. Maybe, just maybe, that was his son. No, it wasn't just a maybe. That was definitely his son. He could feel such a similarity in the Force between Anakin and Luke, and Vader knew that his past had finally caught up to him. Vader takes a moment to step out. He needs to breathe. He needs to reset himself. He needs to refocus. He watches as he takes a step out into the hallways of the giant mechanical bay that's nearby. Because everybody's getting ready for the race, there is nobody that is there. So Vader takes a second to breathe and think. He doesn't want to race anymore. He doesn't want these people to know who he is, who he has become. But he knows that he has to in order to please Taku. When Taku comes in and asks him what's going on, Vader looks at his master in the eyes and tells him exactly what's on his mind. Taku looks back at Vader, intrigued. He wonders what's going on with his powerful pod racer. Finally, he sighs, and he begins to reveal a side to him that Vader had never seen before. Tacoma. You know what? I didn't always want to race either. I didn't always want to do this. Some days I woke up and I was just so bedridden, with depression, with sadness. I couldn't do it. Taku says, "You sad? Depressed?" Vader replies. Taku smiles. "Yeah, I've been in the dumps a few times. Especially..." His eyes glaze over for a moment. "Especially when?" Vader asks. Taku looks back, present with Vader. "Especially after the death of my daughter," he says. "You have a daughter?" Vader replies. Taku nods. "Well, I did. Her name was Mika. A great pilot. She was spectacular. I taught her so many different things. She just picked it up so naturally, and she loved it. She loved it so much. You know, when the Empire came here, and they saw my designs for pod races and other ships, they thought they were pretty cool. And not knowing what the Empire was yet, I gave them to them. I said, sure, use my plans. They compensated me, gave me a whole lot of money. And my daughter went and she flew at the Imperial Academy, graduating as a pilot, a TIE fighter pilot no less. I was proud of her. After watching her race all those years through Beggars Canyon, in the T-16 Skyhoppers and my old pod races, man, was I proud. A pilot from the Imperial Academy. But, I should have known. Taku pauses again, trailing off. Vader watches, looking into his eyes, seeing some tears begin to well up, and sensing that Taku is no longer the man that he was just moments ago with him. Vader looks back. What happened next, Taku? Taku returns to the moment. Well, the Empire. They took my designs, and without my permission, perverted them, changed them, altered them into war-making machines, new experimental whatevers. I think one might have even been the pilot project for some new thing that Grand Admiral Thrawn's working on now. But when I went and when I heard about this, I was so mad. But you want to know why I heard about it? You want to know how I knew that the Empire took my designs and changed them? Because they asked my daughter to be a test pilot. And she never told me. She wanted that promotion, and she knew that if she told me, I would be mad, and I would say no, that she couldn't take it. Because they took my designs and used them without my permission to make war-making machines. Not racers, not ships, no, war-making machines. And then they used my daughter as a test pilot. And she went up there so proud and happy and excited. And she died in those prototypes. Blew up, just some pawn in the Empire's big game for galactic domination. My daughter was not a pawn. She was a person, and the Empire just discarded her like trash. Didn't even bother telling me. I had to ask them where she was, especially after she didn't communicate with me, and they tried to give me some mumbo-jumbo about how she was on some mission that was top secret, but I knew they were lying. I knew it, especially when she didn't come back the next year, or the year after that. So I did some digging, and I found out the real reason that she died. I've got some contacts back at ISB, some folks who I knew would help me out. Ugh, gosh. He shakes his head. That's why I keep doing this, Tacoma. Because you remind me of her. H2NO said the same thing. You remind us both of Mika. Your spirit, your passion, the way you fly. It's astounding. And I think that you have the possibility to be one of the greatest racers of all time. So get out there and show me that you can make my Mika proud. Taku says, putting his hand on Vader's shoulder. Vader looks back at Taku, thinking once again about his past, about everything he'd done in the name of the Empire and in the name of destroying the injustice that perverted Palpatine's new rule. But now he saw that the Empire very well may have been the ones who were the people that were taking that injustice and exacerbating it. He looks back at Taku, wanting to tell him about his past, wanting to tell him who he was, but he just couldn't bring himself to do it. However, this inspires him, and Vader now wants to race. I'll do it. I'll do it for you and for Mika, Vader says. Good. I can't wait to see you race out there. Vader walks back onto the track, ready to absolutely ace this course. Soon, everything would come into place, and soon, Vader would emerge victorious on this course. Even if he had to race his son, even if he had to race Plo Koon and Sebulba, Vader would be victorious. Vader was no longer Darth Vader. Now, he was Skyglider, and he was going to prove to the galaxy that he could race. For this match, once again, Jabba is the guest of honor. Vode and Bede are in the press box again, and they're commentating on the incoming match. This is where he heard about Plo's exploits on the Cato Neimoidia track, which he had studied in his review of footage and knew that it was incredibly difficult to master. He would have to keep an eye out for him on the track. Vader hops in his racer, ready to take on whatever came his way, and soon he would even surpass Plo Koon, the one who placed second on Cato Neimoidia during his first race. There were many differences between the two, but also two very key similarities. They had both placed second, and now they were vying for a win. The race kicks off, and Anakin zooms away. He passes Ben Quadraneros again, and he makes sure to give him a friendly wave as he zooms by him in the canyons. This time, he appears to be neck and neck with Plo Koon and Sebulba. Anakin has competition, and he bumps into Sebulba with his old, clanky racer many times. The Doug still doesn't know who Anakin is, but he's determined to show him who's boss. But finally, Vader, after banging into Sebulba many times and just wanting to pass him, not wanting to endure his crazy games again, he grows tired of Sebulba's dirty tricks, and he simply decides that he's going to crush his left engine with the Force. This forces Sebulba to absolutely spiral, crashing into the ground in a bowl of fire, and Vader takes the lead. During the second lap, Vader and Plo end up racing for first. They're tied, and Vader knows that Plo has always been a great pilot. Memories flood back to him of them soaring through the skies of various planets together during the Clone Wars, and now Anakin is his adversary. The pair bump into each other many times, and Plo even so far goes as to push Anakin directly into the walls of Beggar's Canyon. However, the resilient make of the old racer endures the scrapes, and Anakin manages to shoot by Plo when the end of the cave comes. This doesn't stop Plo from gunning his engine as well. They both have to weave in and out of the fire of Tusken Raiders, and Anakin is hit by a stray shot. His right engine starts to smoke, and he comes in for his final lap, but he has to go for a quick pit stop, causing Plo to scream ahead. Vader wouldn't let that stop him though. Taku tells Vader to just put it all on the track, and he obliges. After the pit stop, with H2NO, Vader zooms away, ready for his third lap of the track. On the final lap, Plo seems like he's running away with the race. However, he doesn't expect two things to happen. Vader takes some shortcuts, which he'd practiced with Ben and Taku, and he manages to catch the elusive racer. It also seemed that another racer had also learned this trick. Luke Skywalker, the Tatooine native, comes up on their tails as they zoom through Beggar's Canyon one last time. It seemed that he had also defeated Ben Quadraneros. Vader is astounded, especially since it's his son, but he can't help but be impressed by the young racer. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to win, though. So the three battle for continued supremacy of the racing track. Vader plays by the rules, except for with Sebulba, because that dug had never been fair. So he doesn't try anything dirty with the other two racers. He bashes Plo backwards, though, causing the engine to short out a bit, which allows for Skywalkers to zoom ahead. It's neck and neck at the end between Luke and Vader, and it's an incredibly tight race. Vader elegantly maneuvers his pod racer through the caves of Beggar's Canyon, feeling the rush of wind against his head.
And Skyglider zooms through the desert sands, ratcheting his position up to first place.
Fold calls to the crowd. Vader's heart races.
But wait, it looks like Plo Koon, the one who placed second on the infamous Cato Moria circuit in his first race, is coming up quickly behind the stranger. They're neck and neck, vying for dominance on the final leg of the track. Who will emerge victorious?
Fold yells emphatically. The crowd roars in excitement as the two race down that final leg of the track, hoping to emerge victorious.
But wait, it looks like Tatooine native Luke Skywalker is coming in hot pursuit of Plo. This is a tight race, folks. In all my years of calling races, I've never seen one as close as this. Who will be the victor?
At the end, with a small bump, Vader is able to soar ahead of his son, who is less experienced in the racers, and he zooms through that finish line, emerging victorious. He's showered in adoration from the crowd, along with from his coach, who comes out and gives him a big hug on the track. However, it's at this point that Vader notices something in the press box. When he looks up, he sees Jabba, and then he sees another man beside him. It was the sleazy Imperial captain that he'd been sent to capture all those months ago. And that captain was sitting there sipping spotchka in the VIP booth beside Jabba the Hutt. Captain Hicks smirks and waves at Vader. Vader simply stares dead into his eyes in response. As Vader is continued to be showered by praise, he notices that Hicks comes down from the press box. Vader's confused. He then sees the Imperial officer come down to actually greet him and shake his hand. Vader gives the officer a stern look. "Nice to see you again, Darth Vader," Hicks says. "I didn't think that you would be this emphatic of a pod racer." Hicks smiles, especially when he looks to the sky and sees an Imperial shuttle surrounded by a fleet of Star Destroyers in orbit above Tatooine, descending to the surface. Vader feels his heart sink. He senses the familiar presence of Emperor Palpatine coming down from the sky. Taku looks at Vader, wondering what's going on. "Tacoma? Who are these people? What's going on? Isn't this that captain that I saved you from a long time ago?" Tacoma looks back at Taku. Behind his mask, his eyes are wide and filled with fear. "I didn't want to see these people again," he says, "especially not after racing with you." "Who are they? Who's coming?" Then the Imperial shuttle lands right in the middle of the track for everyone to see. And Emperor Palpatine steps out as the landing gear hisses, with his two red guards in tow, and Grand Moff Tarkin right behind him. Palpatine looks at Vader. "Hello, Vader, child of the Empire. Won't you come back and join me?" Vader stares at Palpatine. He then looks at Taku, and then he looks at Hicks, and then back at Palpatine. Finally, his past truly had caught up to him. And now, in this moment, he needed to figure out exactly what to do. Would he go and join the Empire again, or will he stay and pod race? That's for next time. But for now, Vader has a choice to make. How does Taku react to this? What will he think in the next episode? Well, that's for you to find out in the next episode of our pod racing series, and we shall see what happens when Vader finally has to confront his past. Hey there folks, now's a period in time where we transition from our story into the Ask Anything segment of the video, where people can pose questions in the Discord and I will respond to them. Today we have a question from Keldo-chan, who is asking, who is my favorite historical general and why? So this one is going to be a very niche question, and I'm not sure if my international followers will know who I'm talking about. Some of you may, but I'm not 100% sure because I think that this is part of Canadian history that we talk about here, but it isn't discussed as much outside of Canada or abroad. My favorite historical general is General Brock, General Isaac Brock, Sir Isaac Brock, during the War of 1812. I think that he just did a great job commanding his troops and commanding them to victory. It was a shame that he died at the Battle of Queenston Heights because I really think that he could have done so much more for the War of 1812 and the effort going forward. He also forged some good relations between the Indigenous people and the British for that war, and it's a very interesting conversation to have about where that led and how that ended up later on in history. So I really like Sir Isaac Brock, a great historical general from Canadian history who led his troops to victory during the War of 1812 on multiple occasions, and despite his death at the Battle of Queenston Heights, the British forces still emerged victorious. I'd love to hear who your favorite general is in the comments below. Are you guys history buffs? If so, who do you enjoy reading about, and who would you say is your favorite figure from history? Thank you all for watching today's video. As always, I had a blast making it and a blast recording it. I would really encourage you guys, if you want to see your comments and your questions featured in future videos, please join the Discord server. I'll interact with you there and I'll have a great time. It's fantastic to build this community, and it's you guys who make this community so vibrant. So thank you all for joining the Discord, and I hope to see you there so that I can give you a Bantha Stew hello. In addition, what did you guys think about this video? Where do you think it'll go next? What do you think will happen next in our story? Comment your thoughts down below. I would love to hear what you have to say, and we'll see if you guys are correct in the future. As always, I hope that each and every one of you has an absolutely bantha-tacular rest of your day. And, as always, I really hope that you've had your daily delicious dose of Bantha Stew.